With this Shofar Gadol, we start this Yom Kippur teaching, and today talking about the Day of Atonement, more known in our culture, Yom Kippur, or the Day of Covertures, the 10th day of the 7th biblical month, tradition culture known as a Tishri, and it's the holiday known as the Yom HaKippurim, like I said, the Day of the Atonement. The day is dedicated for fasting, as literally known, a day of a prayer in which the Eternal is gonna, that we ask in tradition to atone for our sins. We ask Eternal to atone for our sins, right? That is in tradition. Now, we have biblical readings from Leviticus, of course, and we're gonna have something around. But just to remember now that we still going around at the biblical calendar, the Hebrew calendar, right? We went around from Shabbat to Yom Teruah already. We're talking about these autumn festivities, or the end of the harvest festivities, which speaks about the second coming of Messiah, the second coming of Mashiach, Yeshua, right? And this all time where we have to talk about the fruits of justice, the fruit of perseverance, the fruits that we have to bear to our Adon in perseverance, in faith, in emunah, right? So passing through all these festivities, we are getting close to the light of the Messiah shining again in the day, as we stay in this darkness of this Mizraim, Egypt. And so coming out into this, we have the waiting for the day, the eternal light, which is again in the heavens with Mashiach, the right side of the eternal. And so this is it. This is traditionally we knew that after the Jubilee ends, it was a great shofar sound. So that's the reason we start with a great shofar sound. The Kiagadol is known in tradition, though still tradition is nowhere without order into the Torah. Some other things that we're gonna see today, some of the things that we have spoke already, but that is what it is we're gonna see today. So welcome everyone. We're gonna keep walking into this, learning more about the Father, the shadows of the Messiah, the plan of the redemption, and this is it. So in Genesis, we see by Genesis 1:14, Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the expansion of the heavens, to separate, to set apart the day from the night, and to serve as signals for the seasons, for days and nights." We have spoke about that already. We have seen what this meant for us in our times. But also I want to point out this now in this Yom Kippur, this teaching about that we as a set apart people serve to the Eternal also. As he has set apart some people before, he has set apart people now with Mashiach to still doing the same task that he wants us to do, to be light to the nations. We have been separated to work as for the day. Do not work in the evil things at the night. Same thing, we're still working to serve as signals to the Father. To the living water is coming out from us. There's Mashiach, of course. It's Mashiach living in us, who are to serve as those parts, those Kohanim, those high priests, and priesthood of a priesthood of high kings, and to serve the eternal Elohim. Right? We're gonna analyze those texts in there. And it's a time where we're being commemorating this feast, right? A moed, Mikra Kodesh, right? It's a holy convocation. It's not a feast again. This is appointment. It's a time. It's a designation time of season. Is right. He says specifically a festival, but it's still into what is Yom Kippur is not a hag like it is from Matzot, like it is Shavuot, or like is Sukkot, right? It's not a feast again, like it could be unleavened bread. It's not a feast like the feast of the weeks or the first fruits, or like Sukkot. It is just an appointment time. It's a time where we got meeting, where the Father is calling us for that. Those set apart who are serving to Him are knowing to come into this light in front of the Father, Avinu Sheba Shamayim, and commemorate His holy convocations. We're being called to be set apart, to afflict ourselves in this day of Yom Kippur. So, in So, talking about the expiation of the sins in various concepts, it can be derived from the Day of Atonement in a different meanings. It depends of the culture that we live in. But we're gonna deal with what the Eternal has required for us to keep in this day according to the Word of the Father. Number one, we have, like every culture knows, and what the Bible says, to afflict the souls, as we're gonna see in the text further. So the biblical Hebrew expression to afflict the souls is to mean not literally to fast, even which is the word tzom. In the Hebrew phrase nul nefesh, which is gonna something that we're gonna see translating to afflict the soul, also appears in several biblical passages, which is a clear expression it means to fasting. I'm gonna mention the psalm, the verses in here, so you can refer further for your studying. It's in Psalm 35:13, and when I then were sick, I put my sackcloth, I afflicted, right? That with fasting. So I again anach tzom, which is I afflicted with fasting, and my prayer returned to bosom. In Ezra 8:21, and I published fasting tzom again, where my river by the river Ahava, to afflict us before our eternal, our Elohim, to afflict us hit not anach. Hita not anach. Again, anach. You see the verb in there, something we're gonna see further. Don't worry. To request from Him the right ways for us, right? And our children, to our God. That's our good. Sorry, that's in Ezra 8:21, chapter 8, verse 21. Isaiah verse 58:3. Something we're gonna see further. Why they say, did we fast and did not listen? We afflicted, we humble, our souls, and you didn't understand. Behold, the day of your fast, your week, your own taste, and your oppressed old workers. So we're going to see what that means, the fasting. So based on those passages, there are many more, though, in the Bible. It can say and understood that a term and distress, and now it's synonymous with fast, because every time in the Bible the Israelites afflicted, the fall fasting proclaimed. In addition to the Hebrew word soul, nefesh, that we're gonna see that, which is literally means to appetite, or we have studied that part of the body that drives all the life, which is all our feelings, our emotions, our desires. The nefesh, not the neshama, that's the lower soul. It can meant in this understanding, if we can say so. For example, we see that nefesh meaning for that in Proverbs 23. I'm gonna make some in 23 too. We read, and put a knife to your throat if you have a great appetite, nefesh. Do not covet its fine delicacies, for it's a deceitful bread. Again, in Psalm 107, if it satisfies the longing nefesh, soul, and fills the hungry of soul, again, nefesh, appetite, with a good. In Proverbs 27:7, the full soul, nefesh, hates the honeycomb, but the hungry soul, appetite, nefesh, that is bitter is sweet. Again, you can repeat that so you can understand what I'm meaning, though. But in the context of these passages, the Hebrew word nefesh generally refers to a soul. It's understood as appetite. To afflict your appetite now, and anach we know that is to humble ourselves. That so and therefore the expression afflict your nefesh, right? Anach nefesh is more accurately translated to afflict your appetite. That's literally we want to mendo, or fast your appetite, control your emotions. In other words, enhancing interpretation of fast on Yom Kippur, right? Now, we have to note that nefesh has a literal meaning from throat as well, as we read in Psalm 69:2. Save me, O Elohim, from the waters he have reached as high as my throat, nefesh. That again, that's Psalm 69:2. And therefore, by extension, came to mean bread of life. When you have that my throat, that is the extension of how you take your bread, and then the that key of holding your life. Fasting in this case, fasting in this case, um, what does involve? What does it involve? In the Bible, the concept of fasting means abstaining from eating or drinking for the entire period of time, right? In biblical times, a fast also included the following elements: inter praying, dressing as sackcloth, right, and or dust of ash as a sign of mourning and a sense of Yom Kippur. As Daniel, we saw that, and Nehemiah, we can see that as well, and Isaiah as well. So, so therefore, when Elohim sends his children of Israel to afflict their souls in this context and this understanding, he commands them to fast, but also to all his entails, such as a prayer, repentance, crying for humiliation, to humble themselves. Now, if an Eternal wanted the people to fast, why didn't he use the proper word for fasting, tzom? And instead of use the word afflict, anach, anach. This verifies or affirms that what has just been mentioned, that not only wants to abstain from food, from something that can be easily understood from the Hebrew word tzom, tzadik, zayin, mem, and zom, fasting, but the main purpose of Yom Kippur is to grieve in the context of repentance, teshuvah, humiliation, physical fasting, not only tangible and visible, token that manifests the intention of the heart, right? We're gonna keep going. So we came to the seventh month, and in the seventh month, the biblical month, as we said before, tradition has its names. Biblical, it has no name. We have nothing. It's nothing wrong to call it the seventh month of the biblical month, or the Hebrew calendar, if you wish so. But you got Yom Teruah, something we passed already. And this 2021, we had it on September, on those days that you got it on there, and Gregorian secular calendar, of course. But that is the day, the first day of the seventh month, the day to sound the shofar, the trumpet, as we knew before, announces the judgment and the redemption, the second coming of Yeshua. We have come to the middle of the feast, which is Yom HaKippurim, or Yom Kippur. Single, plural is Yom HaKippurim, singular is Yom Kippur, right? The 10th of the seventh month, number 10 of the seven. Now, you know, the number 10 also has an allusion for the number of the nations, where all the nations come in front of the hymn. 10 of the seventh month, again, the day of the coverage for the redeemed, and the judgment day for the disbelievers, right? There you go. Then after that judgment day, we got to the Sukkot, which is the room for the Shekhinah, or the wedding, the coming back to the presence of the Father, the eternal dwellings, right? That house in the heavens that we're waiting for, as Mashiach promised to us. Not a land, not a temple, not a third temple, such things like that. But he promised for us, the place where I am, you should be. I'm going to prepare dwellings so you can be where I am. It's clear as that it cannot be. So that's what usually comes every year in the 10th day, Now, when it comes to keeping Yom Kippur, you're going to see and observe on the scriptural ordinance, it says from afternoon to afternoon. So we understand by that that the days is one of the signs that we say that the days start from afternoon to afternoon. It's another ones that we have from some kind of weird understanding sometimes in a different traditions, and that the day is from 12 to 12, and a day just then we start counting days every 12 hours, if that is the meaning. But it says that, you know what, day is composed from day and night. It's perfect, and it has from one piece of light to finish with light. That's what it is a day. Anyways, so we have that. I just put that just a reference of what it could be, the 10th day of every 7th month, calendar month. Like I said, in this Gregorian September 2021, it falls like that. The first day was on the 6th of September 2021, a Gregorian calendar. The first day of the 7th month, Hebrew calendar, came like that. So Yom Kippur in this 2021 followed on the 17th, on the 17th Gregorian, the 10th of the Hebrew month, and so on for Sukkot. So Yom Kippur, it tells us quite some different things that we need to learn, that we need to understand, that we need to focus on when it's talking about the Messiah, when it's talking about redemption, when it's talking about forgiveness. They're talking about fasting is about to deny ourselves and understanding what's holiness, what is to be set apart, and to receive that coverture, to being forgive, to not being take away from the people, holy people of His presence, right? So that's one part that we need to understand, and having it really clear when we need to understand and what is Yom Kippur. Kippur, it has a lot of many bad traditions that I have learned to the decades. As I said, depends on what culture has grown out, and we know that by the tradition of the Talmudist, of the Jewish tradition, it has some of uh, traditions that has been involved into the culture of the people of Israel, not necessarily because they were commanded, but because they enrich the observance of commandments. We now see sometimes, for example, Messiah use a time of a wedding, and coming to explain the parable of the wedding, but it's nowhere seen how a wedding is performed except of the from Jacob. So get to Van Jacob, sorry. So in those cases, we need to see and understand where are those traditions coming out. I want to start talking about one which is a ritual of the purification of the tabernacle, which would take place every Yom Kippur, every year. It's also accompanied by a ritual of dismiss goat for or scapegoat, like we can see. And according to the Torah, Aaron and later his successors were to take two goats from the Israelites, right, and put them in the entrance and the front of the tent of the meeting, and they would randomly choose between the two of them, and the eternal and the other, one for the eternal and the other one for Azazel. So the eternal this time this destined for the goat is the goat placed for the eternal or choose for the eternal is called Ata, an offering for an intentional sin or guilt and purification. And the second goat is treated differently. It's just left to be then in the desert. We found that further. We're going to observe that what is the writing scripture ordinance in Leviticus 16. And Leviticus is saying, and the goat upon which Lot fell in Azazel shall stand before the Eternal to make atonement for him and send him away to Azazel. That's Leviticus 16:10. And in ways in which this second goat atones the sins, as clarified later in the chapter and 21, and Aaron, Leviticus 16:21, and Aaron shall lay both hands on the head of the living goat, and shall confess upon it all the iniquities and transgression of the Israelites, whatever their sins, putting them into the head of the goat, and sin will be sent into the wilderness by means of designated men. 16:22. So the goat will carry in him all sins, iniquities to an accessible region, away, okay, to the desert, and the goat will be sent to the desert. 16:26. The one who sent the goat for Azazel will wash his clothes and bathe his body with water. After that, you can re-enter the camp. Okay, so according to many interpreters, Yom Kippur day long with the weekly Shabbat is the most important day of the year, and the day which the Bible and therefore eternal appointed to forgive the sins of the entire nation. We're talking about here the people of Israel or His chosen ones, the people who are forgive because they're walking in obedience, and this is sins that they didn't know. They forgiveness by ignorance, etc. Right, by ignorance, and so they can reconcile with the eternal, with them. However, traditional commentaries over the centuries have struggled to understand this rite or this custom, this ordinance, which is unusual in the biblical corpus. In some groups they said animal rituals would say specifically found in the book of Leviticus are almost always sacrifices, offerings, korbanot, a way to approach the Father, a coming to the presence. Voluntary offerings of sins, committing of ignorance or error. However, this sacrifice is mandatory and aims to cleanse the sins of the entire people, nation. The most surprising thing is that it does not need to be sacrificed. In reality, it should be present in a public place and let it go free. Eh? Let it go free. That's curiously. So we understand that the one has to be sacrificed because he needs to be covered, and the other one has to be. He has two choices, and then see what's on. So that's one part, and the other part that we need to understand is that uh, uh, one is that for the leper that we can see also in Leviticus 14, the two birds sent out from to purify a leper guy. So it's seen in Leviticus 14, like I said, the two Yom Kippur sacrifice can be related to purification sacrifice as this, and as it says in the same passage of context that we've seen. So the priest will order that the two clean-livered birds, cedar wood, crimson threads, and hyssop, be brought for him and the one to be purified. And 14:7 says, and he will send the live bird into open field. See, he has also two birds, two Jonah. So although they are different sacrifices for different occasions, both are related for purification of the individual and the last of purifying the temple, right? Both are used two identical animals, for example, two birds, two goats, and both occasions one is sacrificed and another is set free, right? So although the Bible explains the function of these sacrifices, these offerings, this korbanot, that is so that a leper can be ritually cleansed and to purify all his lights and to symbolically cleanse them and their sins. The Bible does not exactly explain the nature of why these commandments, but why does the eternal need two goats? Why does the eternal need to be an explanation of that? Now we know Yeshua also represents that goat, the goat that is atonement for our sins, right? No more reason for that. We have the whole Hebrew letters, the letter for the Hebrews, which explains plenty of what is the meaning of this, right? Not taking it out of the context like in some religious groups does, but we're gonna just read a couple chapters on that further on too. And for this reason, we need to understand some other things that I want to include here is that ancient Middle East rituals were generally involved sending animals in inhabited place. Not what is the Torah ordained, but we know that all those were shadows, and everything that the Eternal used is to teach us in this part of the existence that we need, this reality that we know, or it's this shadow of the reality that we are, to understand what is the symbolic meanings of everything. Now, that the time where we see an animal being tied up with a red uh, uh, how I could say this, I forgot the name of the animal of the Jesus. Well, Anyway, in the old, I want to mention that the use of the two animals, it was also something that we see in the different cultures by the time of Israel. A word, a false oath, of course, a purifier has been committed in the eyes of the deity in those times. So animals were sent to wait to separate it in front of the deity with the iniquity that that person has done, in order of that ritual patron or to the person has been to be purified of these things. We can see that in the book of Samuhana Religions Center of the Hittites Empire. The Hittites Empire. Mhm. Again, the name of the book, Publications of the Orientalist Institute of Louvain, number 2. And so the name of the book is René Lebrun, Samuha, Religious Center of the Hittite Empire. So according to that book, it says in this text in there, a series of live animals called nakushis, who take away abstract evils, and in doing so purify the patients and the deity alike. Intrinsically, the purification of the deity here is consistent with the priest of viewpoint purposed in the Torah, and impurify the temple is caused by human sin. Okay, so again, an IT mouse ritual. That's the Hati mouse ritual is a Luvian Hittite ritual from the same time and place. Again, that's the second one. So an exorcist or one of these workers of these esoteric things wraps a small piece of a thin and thread, ties it around the right hand of the foot of the patient. So and then she takes it from him, tying it around a mouse, first in the person and then in the mice on a mouse. And I have taken the evil from you. I have tried it around the mouse. So let this mouse take you to the high mountains, to the pits valleys, and the long roads. So something that is explained in there. So releasing the mouse in the mountains, and that is in the Birgit the Birgit Christiansen, die ritualization. This is all German. This is Birgit Christiansen, die ritually tradition der Embassy. It's like analysis of the ancient rituals. I'm gonna make maybe a pause of this, but anyway, you can just search what is old traditions about that the tying about the red thing into the people, and in these times, in this case, in this ritual, is important connections. To not mention that it's not like something that we see on Torah. I mean, these people, these things were done just to look for wealth, for health, for to make their own benefit, not like the biblical tradition. The biblical tradition always appoints to a person to come in front of the Father and to make shalom with him, to be to ransom for all the iniquities that he has charged against the Father. Now, when we come to Yom Kippur, it's quite a different uh, ritual, because it's mentioning two of them. One is going to chase the iniquity for the whole people, and the other one is going to set free. Now, after the six, I have more. I have quite like six more. I'm going to make a translation and put it in my Facebook, maybe Spanish too. I'll see later on, but it's a quite more of a pagan rite that the people attach this to what the Torah is meant, but it's not. My point is that because the pagan rites are a copy of what is in Yom Kippur meant, is not what it really Bible meant to be, right? Because they were Luvians, Hurrians, Hittites, Mesopotamian civilization, especially in Syria and the region of Anatolia, which the Israelite civilization was part of that. This doesn't mean they were thinking of the same objective. Okay, so the Bible has its own historical context about this. right? And we need to think about what the Eternal Father with these people coming out of the wilderness, and what does he think about Father wants them to set apart the people from staying on the tabernacle because they were impure, and not coming and they can die because they were impure in front of the Father, right? That is one of the points of what that means. Okay, so we have in a scriptural ordinance, and we said we're gonna read in Leviticus 23:26 to 32, as we're studying the Leviticus chapter. And the Eternal spoke to Moses, saying, also on the 10th of the 7th month shall be a day of atonement, Kippur, Yom Kippur, from the 37:25, and his root is Kippur, 37:22. We're gonna get that later, or we're gonna get it now. It's a primitive roof to cover, figuratively to expiate, to condone, to placate, or to cancel, to appease, to cleanse, disannul, to forgive, to be merciful, to pacify, to pardon, to purge away, to put off, to make reconciliation. How about that? It's a day to make reconciliation. There shall be a holy gathering. Again, a holy gathering is not just for impure, sinful people who does not know what is an ordinance from the Father. For those who talk about they get away from the law, stay there, away with the law. Depart from me, you, all of you, evildoers, anomos, without Torah, without law. And you shall humble anah, what we just mentioned. We're gonna make a little talk about this. Humble anah, and weaken your bodies, afflict your bodies, and shall bring the fire offering to the eternal, offering through fire. And shall do no work in the same day. If this Shabbat is a high Shabbat, it's a day of rest, a cease, commemorated to the eternal. It's a day of an atonement again. It's a day of atonement, it's a day of expiation, it's a day to reconciliation, right? Not like they were known, and not like what we have people have done here about reconciliation days in the nations, right? But it's a day of reconciliation to the Father, not singing anymore, right? Not singing anymore. To atone you before the eternal, you Elohim. For any person who is not humble, who doesn't hana again, who does not hanach, lo hanach, in this same day shall be cut off of his people. Take it away from the holy people. Hmm? And any person who does any work in this same day shall be cut off, shall even cut off the person shall in the midst of his people. Again, whoever does not is cut it away, is taken away. They shall not go work, and either ending a statute through your generations, and all your dwellings. Is a Shabbat to rest for you, again, and it shall humble your souls in the ninth and the month and the evening. Yet at the evening, from evening until evening, it's really clear said in there, from Erev to Erev, uh, you shall keep your Shabbat. Leviticus 26, 23, 26 to 32. That's the Hebraic Roots Bible. And again, something that I want to take from here, very important things that we have to take from the scriptural ordinance. He wants a gathering, a holy convocations, to humble ourselves, anach, right, and to afflict our body. We understood that is to deny ourselves pretty much in front of the Father, understanding that He is the Almighty and He wants holiness in our bodies, right, and to be on reconciliation from Him. Now, that was a shadow. We understand according to the book of Hebrews. That was all these things were shadows of what Mashiach will come to done, come to done. All right. Now the word Kippur, the root of Kippur is also uh, uh, to come close. Its root, kafar, to come close. That's why it's uh, to reconciliation, the shadow of the reconciliation. But of course, we want to be able to do so, having a reconciliation to the Father. We don't understand what is enough to depress, or literally to figuratively, or to various implications, intransitivity, various implications, evade self, self-affliction, or hasten self, deal hardly with defile, exercise, force, gentleness, humble self, hurt, ravage, submit self, weaken, right? So when we come to understand anach in the many meanings that we could understood for what we see is that in the Tanakh, I just reading my notes in here, but when I get to Isaiah 57 in there, just what we read really shortly, for this say the height of the lofty one, the height one, Elyon, that is inhabited in eternity in the heavens, whose name is holy, Kadosh. What, that's his name, Kadosh? There is no other name than that. And dwelling in a high and holy place, with him also that is a contrite and humble in spirit. He's not just living in there in the high places in the eternity, but he also is dwelling with one that is anach, anif be'anach, which is a Hebrew expression, anif be'anaf, that we're gonna see Yeshua teach, and it's written in this expression anif be'anach in the Brit Hadashah, and to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite ones. Isaiah 57:15, Israeli authorized version. Also, I want to mention what is in Psalm 34:13-18, the Hebraic Brooks version. It said in there, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking and guile. I for that. Keep your tongue from evil, drive your tongue, your thoughts, your emotions, turn from evil and do good, seek peace and pursue it. Shalom. Pursuing the shalom. What is pursuing shalom? What is pursuing shalom? The eyes of the eternal are in the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry, to their call. The face of the eternal is against those who do evil, to cut off their memory from earth. The righteous call or the cry, and the eternal hears, and he saves them out of all their distress. From the anach, from the affliction, the eternal is near to the broken, anach again, of heart, and saves the crushed of spirit, humble in spirit. So when we come to the Brit Hadashah, we read Messiah, he said, blessed are the poor in spirit, and there is the kingdom of heaven. If we came to understand what is in Matthew 5:3, a need be enough of humble and crushed on the spirit, right? We need to understand that more clearly in the words of Messiah. I have notes. I'm missing something here. I'm sorry. That are not concerning what I wanted to read here. Okay. Nope. So when we come to understand Anif Be'anav, what is written in Matthew 5, when the Messiah just teaches this, blessed are the poor in spirit, and for there is The kingdom for theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. We have to understand this. The way that we have to understand this, of course, has to be as the Bible says us, which is so. We're gonna go to the Mashiach's words, of course, but we're gonna also go through what Isaiah says. What is seek the eternal, you humble of the land, you humble and nav of the land who do his just commands, mishpatim, seek righteousness, tzedek, seek humility, anavah again. Perhaps you may be hidden in the day of the anger of the eternal. That's in Zephaniah, English Standard Version, chapter 2, verse 3. I just wanted to mention that as in the chapter 58. Let me see if I can read it here in a different Bible. When the Mashiach mentions in the Matthew, Isaiah, chapter 58, I got a version in my recording, which is not really something I want to read on. About what is Anif Bi'anaf and understanding what is him meaning with it. So in Isaiah chapter 58, the whole chapter, what is the true and false fasting? Or what is the true tzedakah that the Eternal is asking us for doing? So cry aloud, do not hold back, raise your voice like a shofar. Tell my people their transgression, the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek the day to day, they delight to know my laws, and they were a nation that did right, and had not forsaken their God's decree, the Eternal's decree. They ask me for righteous judgment, they delight in years two of the Eternal. 58:3. Why have we fasted, yet you do not see? Why have we afflicted our souls, yet you not notice? Behold, in the day of your fast you seek your own pleasure and exploit all your labors. In the day of your fast, seek your own pleasure. Now, fasting is still not looking for our own pleasure. When it comes to Yom Kippur, it doesn't mean that we come to see just for our benefit. It doesn't mean that we need just our heal. It doesn't mean that we need some material things. Is to come to be on shalom with the Father, because he's gonna forgive the transgressions of his people, right? Now, verse number 4, Isaiah 58 verse 4. Behold, your fast for strike and contention, and to strike with a wicked fist. You should not fast that you do today to make your voice heard and hide. This is the fast I have chosen? Are they for one to afflict his soul? It's to bow down his neck, his head like a reed, and spreading out sackcloth and ashes? Will you call this fast and a day acceptable for Adonai? I mean, he's calling this. Is that what he's looking for? Literally, he's just punishing your body and just doing a fasting day, and that's about it? Now, he's pointing from verse 6 in Isaiah 58, what he choose. Is this the fast that I choose, to release the bonds of the wickedness? Somebody's being like Yeshua did it with the hump and the old lady. He just distressed that lady from that bond that she has suffered for, I think it's 14, 16 years old though. To untie the cords of the yoke, oppressed in the dark souls. To let the oppressed to go free, and to tear off every yoke. To tear off every yoke, yeah. Is not to share your bread with the hungry? Look at that, doing righteousness. That's the true humiliation that he wants against the Father. That's the true anava, gentleness, meekness, humility, subjective to the Father. That's what he's looking to bring the homeless poor into your house. Give shelter for those who need. When you see the naked, to cover him in need. To hide yourself from your own flesh and blood, evildoers, killing. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will spring up speedily. Your righteousness will go before you, and the splendor of the night is your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Eternal will answer. You will cry, and he will say, Here I am. If you get rid of the yoke among you, finger pointing and bowmating, if you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will arise in the darkness, and your gloom will be like the midday. Then the Eternal will guide you continuously, satisfy your soul in growth and strength your bones. You will be like a water garden, like a spring of water, though whose waters never fail. That's what is. That's what is enough. Now, when Yeshua said, "Blessed are those aniv anav, the humble ones, because they're going to understand the kingdom of the heaven, doing righteousness, the kingdom of the heavens." Of course. Now you go to Yaakov, the letter of Yaakov, chapter 3, 13 to 18. That's in Israeli American Authorized Version again. Who is a wise man and endure with knowledge among you? Let him sue out of a good conversation with works, with meekness and wisdom. But if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, alight not against the truth. The wisdom descended not from above, from this earthly sensual devilish. Now you see all those religious systems that start speaking about that you have to fasting, and they wish just for heal, they wish for richness, they wish for the benefit something is going on around their life, to be good with your wife, to etc. Because the real deal in your life is to be against in shalom against the Father, to heal your soul, to heal your entire life, doing righteousness to the others, love the eternal with the whole thing, and love your neighbor as yourself. Sometimes people just sit down in these churches or behind a TV or a computer, your cell phone, just thinking that teaching your scriptures is just good enough. And he come to Yom Kippur thinking that everything that he have done through the year is good enough for the eternal. Guess what? That's not good enough. Loving the others as yourself is part of that to start by. Because loving the eternal is the same as love yourself, love your neighbors as yourself. Said Mashiach, for all the prophets and Torah hold on those two commandments. Not because it's only two, but the whole Torah and the whole prophets hold on those commandments. They knew very well, practicing all this righteousness, it was something that Eternal always asked his people to perform, and they never done. It's still till this today. It's still done until today. Go to look to the state of Israel, what they have done to their neighbors. It's a shed of blood everywhere they go. What is doing in the United States with people of Israel, with other countries, is the shed of blood. Not mentioned in other countries, but I mention what it is, and all know better what it do. Just creating divisions, just creating emotions to get people rising for money, and what people looking for their own wisdom. The wisdom descended not from above, but the earthly, sensual, devilish. For anything is strife is. There is confusion, every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is pure, is peaceful, peaceable, gentle. You can't deny this is understandable. And easy to be in ether, fully of mercy and good of fruits, without partially and without hypocrisy, And the fruit of righteousness is sown in shalom, again, for them that make shalom. And with this, we're going to start working on something that making shalom, performing shalom, to be in shalom with the Father. If the Eternal was calling these people from the Israel in the chapter 58 with Isaiah, is to afflict themselves in the meaning of doing righteousness, so he can be in shalom with them because they were doing the light of them, right? If we come in Yom Kippur, now that we understand the Messiah, understanding and love your neighbor as much as yourself, you cannot come to Yom Kippur saying that you have done a year where you just hide behind a TV, not performing the good task that the Torah demands us to perform. That's unreachable that people in the religions pretty much do sometimes. It's just receiving, receiving, receiving. They never done anything for other ones. That's unacceptable. I expect the people outside there still at least having a criticized point for those religion systems and say, okay, what are we doing? Are we really? Don't bring your money to those religion systems. You should know somebody who really needs all of these points that Eternal is clarifying. Go to read chapter 58. Say, okay, I know this kind of person. I will visit this kind of person. The world is too big to just hide the people and hide your money inside four walls with a cross. That's not correct. That's not righteousness. That's not the fruit of righteousness. To perform shalom, to make that covenant with the Father that He wants us to do, to be in peace with Him and not against Him. That is the ones who look without hypocrisy to be peaceful with the others and with the Father. Right? Starting by that, we start looking what is to make shalom. To understand what is to do in shalom, I'm going to go back to another Exodus 32, chapter 32. I'm going to read, and Moses stood at the gate of the camp and said, whoever sins Adonai's side, let him come to me. Then all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to him. And he said to them, this is what Eternal, your Elohim, said to Israel, every man put on his sword, and go and from gate to gate through the camp, and slay his brother, his friend, and his neighbor. So the sons of Levi did as Moses said. And that day from among the people they fell about 3,000 men. Then Moshe said, consecrate your hands today to Adonai. Consecrate your hands, imagine the slaughter, to the Eternal, so that he may give you a blessing today, for every man has been against his son and his brother. Now, what we're seeing here is the first separation from the people of Israel for those ones who want to consecrate it on the jealousy of the Father, because they didn't want to be part of the idolatry. They didn't want a part of something that the Eternal has not spoke. The Eternal that hasn't been gave to them all those rituals. The Eternal hasn't given to them any of those indications to perform and said that He lives inside those temples, that He lives inside those images, that He is performing miracles for them, because this is just built by their own ideology, like we just read. So we're seeing here that what Eternal, because I know some people is gonna go with this morbid thought that, oh yeah, but He's not killing people, but He's sent to kill another 3,000 men. Understand what they are doing. They rather choose to perform what they learn in the pagan countries instead of consecrating and stay by what Eternal wanted to be with them, His Elohim, and to clean them so they can be the light for the nations as He wanted to, as He mentioned to them, right? To consecrate yourselves so you'll be a priesthood of a high priest to be my delightful from the nations and work as a light for them. But they didn't want to do that. Why didn't they stood aside like the Levites did? So the Levites were the first people who wanted to set apart, even from their family, from the neighbors. I said, and go to gate, throw full the camp, and slay his brother, his friend, and his neighbor. So the sons of Levi, take that importance. Deciding whose side you're on, whose side you're on depends pretty much on what kind of shalom we're looking for. So consecrate your hands today, your will. We have to speak the hands in Torah, the hands in the Tanakh, speak of your will. So Adonai may give you a blessing today, that every man that has been against his son and his brother, against his family, have you ever heard? And we have read in the Read Halashah from Yeshua said, but whoever chooses brother and family better than me is not worth it of me. There it is. Those who want to consecrate themselves rather than choose following the pagan ways of their families are being chosen by the Eternal. They receive the blessing from the Eternal. And they receive that blessing from their Father. Now that's why the Levites they receive the inheritance from the Eternal. They didn't receive any kind of land. They inherit the Father itself. What is inheriting the Father? The eternity. From the biblical times, they had that inheritance, waiting on those on the one they have to wait on Yeshua, of course, right? So deciding whose side you're on. Sorry, from Exodus 32, that's a chapter that was really really clear on what we, when we come to Yom Kippur, have to do. When he's pointing to this, we want to come to a day out of the idolatry, out of leaving the nations, living out of Egypt, and not coming to what the Father is have said, but just keep doing what the nations done. That's not what He wants. It's gonna be sword. It's gonna be a sword. We know that the only thing that separates us from our family is keeping and performing the testimony of Yeshua the Mashiach, doing the word. How many of you have not been criticized and judged because keeping Shabbat? How many of you have not been criticized or being judged just because you want to eat kosher? Just very simple of those two. Not even speaking about keeping the festivities, but deciding whose side you're on is going to give you this, a consecration or a punishment. That is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is coming against to the Father to consecrate ourselves in righteousness, to consecrate all our lives into holding this word in our hand, the will, to put our will into the word of the Father. That's what it is, consecrated. Yom Kippur talks about of those who want to consecrate themselves. And I wanted to put it this so we can understand it clear what he's talking about, the affliction, because we're gonna suffer, by performing the righteousness. Some people will not just understand us. They just want to do the will of the Father because they want to do their own will. They want to follow the traditions of the world. They want to do the lust of the flesh. Of course. So, coming on next, we got the Matthew 10. Sorry for that. We got to Matthew 10, and we're going to mention what Yeshua said. Therefore, whoever acknowledges me before men, I also acknowledge him before my Father who is in heaven. I can imagine that redemption day when Yeshua comes back and he will not acknowledge us because we have rejected him, or we have rejected the word of the Father to put it on task. Again, therefore, whoever acknowledges me before men, I also acknowledge him before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also deny him before my Father who is in heaven. And then we understand what happened in Torah was, do not think that I came to bring shalom, peace on earth. I did not come to bring shalom, but a sword. The same thing happened to the Levites with Moshe. The Father wanted to bring that division by the word, which is believing in Yeshua, putting his commandments on work, doing righteousness, fed the hunger, broke the bonds of the wickedness, and tied the cords of the yoke the present ones. Yes, that's what he wants to do. Not just Sit down in front of a computer, just start talking about this over and over and receive the benefit. From there we can go on, but you know what? That's the only thing that we have to do. This technology of these days has teach us to learn these things by this way. And yes, it's a good task. It's a good tool to help others and to stretch the word of the Father through the world. But guess what? In biblical times, they did not like that. Even it was a worse kind of a system from Roman Empire, and they still doing it against it. They suffered because of that. They were killed because of it, and they never deny it. What are you waiting for? What are we waiting for to do it? For I came to set up man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against a mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be the enemies of his household. Household, your own household. He who loves father and mother more than me isn't worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me isn't worthy of me. How strong are the words of the Messiah when we come to separate ourselves from our family who does not want to follow the Father. And we understand that following our Father is the truth, the way, the life. Following Messiah, his Son, is the only way to redeem and be in shalom with the Father. Otherwise, we just receive a punishment. And whoever does not take up his tortured stake, or his cross in other worse translation says, and follow me after me isn't worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. Is in anything easy to trying to follow Messiah when we know and understand that this word doesn't want to do the word of the Father, doesn't want to deny themselves. They don't want to be hungry. They don't want to deny one day one hunger, starving on food if it's literally, because we can do it literally for the Father. It doesn't hurt us at all. It's actually very beautiful to get one day empty of nothing, because it's nothing that we have to do. It's a fasting day, not even water. The body get help from that. It's an assurance. It's a truth that he's giving in there. It's a benefit. Abstain yourselves. And the body will clean itself. He wants us to our life be clean from all those toxic elements that is outside that we have to consume, because this society is just that, toxicity or toxicity. Every single thing that we receive in there. Pornography, radio, TV, books, music, even work today, still doing something different. Bless those ones who have a work that work by themselves or a homestead, and they can be a part of this system. But for those who keep here, it's not different. We can still helping others, and that's what the Father wants us to do, to live in the middle of in the midst and of this society and performing the light of the nations. How other way we could be the light of the nations if we live away from the nations? Of course, we have to live in the middle of the nations, like those people in the middle of the whole people that got it out from Egypt. And then he make all those statements in there and start separating holy people for him, for his sake, for his power, to understanding how he wanted to do these people, this shalom. Do not think that I came to bring shalom on the earth, peace to the earth, the peace that people wanted to stop the wars. That's never gonna stop. I did not come to bring shalom by sword. It's understanding that sword is not killing people, but a division for those who does not, again, those ones who does not consecrate themselves, humble themselves, and even enough who are humble, who humble themselves and self-afflict their life in front of the Father. Yes, we have to do it in one day, but it doesn't mean that it's just one day. That's our entire life, every single day of every year. And when it comes to a day, we absolutely will follow that as well. No doubt about it. Another event that we can see on Torah is when Numbers 25:11-13, when Pinhas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen, the high priest, had turned my wrath away from the children of Israel. Look at this, a shadow of Messiah who had turned away the wrath from the Eternal to the children of Israel, while he was zealous of my sake among them. And I consumed not the children of Israel in my jealousy. Therefore said it, behold, I give into him my covenant of peace. I give into him my covenant of peace, a covenant of shalom. Breathe shalom, a fullness. And you guys understand what shalom means, right? A fullness, a plenitude with the Father. Not in this life, please. A plenitude with the Father, to be in peace with him, right? And he shall have it, and his seed after him. All his descendants have that. The whole priesthood have that. Even the covenant, everlasting covenanthood, all the priesthood from the Levites have that, and the descendants of Pinhas, because he was zealous for his Elohim, and made an atonement for the children of Israel. Again, he made an atonement for the children of Israel. This shadow of Messiah right here on Pinhas, making atonement or stopping the sin inside the people of Israel, gave him a covenant of peace, because he understood that he didn't want to contaminate the people. In this case, it was with the abominations from other nations, with the people of Israel. He wanted them kadosh. He wanted to set apart, to humble themselves in front of the Father. Again, not one day, but every day. It doesn't mean because it's Yom Kippur, I'm going to just sorrow myself in one day and just hit myself in one day and cry like... No. It's every day. And we went and read Isaiah 58 and meant what really meant. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do it literally, because we know that this flesh has to be afflicted as well. So it can subject, the Ruach can subject its flesh. Right? But that atonement for the children of Israel was done by Yeshua when he was hung into the tree. And he's take the burden of all the humankind, like when John said, Inne secha Elohim, he said he will take the sins of the world, and that's what he did. Not just for the Israel, for the entire world, so that the entire world can come and be in peace with the Father. In that bridge shalom, not breaking that amendment anymore, not sin, go sin no more. For those who sin are from the Satan. That's where, I don't know how else to say it, but sin is a breakage of the law, breakage of Torah. Now Matthew 5:9, Yeshua also said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of Elohim." Again, Yeshua is backing up here what Pinhas did it in that time. In that time, when the people of Israel have to shed blood for these kind of atonements, it was understood because they couldn't see it really how the Eternal was cleaning the people of Israel. Is it really that like that? Look at what Pinhas did. He understood that these kind of people will never change, and he had to set apart or stop it right there, that kind of behavior. And the only way to do it and the only way to perform it was to kill them right there. In our days, Yeshua did it for us. He killed and he brought and he triumphed over the dead. And he has placed us with him to sit with him in this kingdom that he has established. And he has set us to be a peacemaker, so we can be called the sons of Elohim. Because I want him to be my Father. So in these verse, Yeshua is not referring to mediators or political negotiators, but to those who carry the fullness of holiness and righteousness, to sin no more, to stop being against the eternal Father. In the biblical Hebrew understanding of shalom, there's a point at which you have so much shalom that it spills out from you and repair and render to others. And so as you make others peaceful and inwardly complete, that makes you a peacemaker. In John 14:27, where Yeshua said, Shalom I leave to you, my shalom I give you. But not as the world know, as the world gives, don't let your heart be troubled and afraid. Every time the people get afraid because they hear that it's gonna be the third war in the Middle East, that we're gonna run out of food, that the tsunami is gonna come to kill everyone, you're not in shalom with the Father. You will not be afraid of the dead, because if you live into your Father, you will live for your Father. If you die for your Father, will you live for the Father? There will be no trouble. The most important thing every single soul on this earth has to be in shalom with the Father, to be on that covenant. If you don't have this covenant with you, the brit shalom, let me say it, you have to be spared and again being put away. You're not inside of that people who is fasting, who is humbling themselves, right? To be in front of that high priest who have to get out of the heavens one day and bring the redemption for every single one, and then be on that house with the Father. That is what it is. Okay, no more notes here. Now in Zechariah 3, we're gonna read something about that same lineage that Pinhas had forged, and that the Eternal had kept that covenant with them to the people of Israel. And he saw it me, Jehoshua, the Kohen Hagadol, standing before the messenger of the Eternal, with the accuser. How many accuse you people, eh? Standing at his right side accused to him. And the Eternal said to the accuser, May the Eternal, may Adonai know, and the Lord, or the messenger said to him, May the accuser, may the Eternal rebuke you, accuser. Indeed, may the Eternal who has made Jerusalem his choice rebuke you. Is in this man a burning stick statue from the fire? Jehoshua was clothed in garments covered with dung, and he was standing before the angel, before the messenger, who said, Those standing in front of him, take those filthy garments of him. Then to him he said, See, I'm taking your guilt away, and I will clothe you in fine robes. Said that I should put you a clean turban on his head, and they put a clean turban on his head and gave him fine robes to wear, while the angel of the messenger of the Eternal stood by. Then the angel of the Eternal, messenger of the Eternal, gave him, Yehoshua, a warning. Till the moment, until that verse 7, until that verse 6, sorry, we have seen that is in this vision that Yehoshua, the high priest, the people that came back from Zerubbabel, from Babylonia, and then is the high priest Yehoshua, and he's having that image that he's in front of that accuser and in front of the angel of the messenger of the Father. The messenger of the Father says, so he's rebuking you to accusing all these people. I'm gonna clean this man, and he's gonna, wearing a fine robes. He, Yehoshua, is the lineage of the same Pinhas. Take that in mind. We're not keep reading in verse 7. I'm pointing here. Hold on. It was here. Then the messenger, the angel of Adonai gave Yehoshua his warning. Adonai Tzevaot at his days is this: if you will walk in my ways, obey my commission, judge my house and guard my country yards. Judge my house and guard my country yards. Hmm? Then I'll give you a free access among these who stand here. Listen, Kohen Hagadol de Joshua, for you and your colleagues sitting here in front of Yehoshua, before you, because these men are sign that I'm going to bring my servant Sprout. Now, this servant Sprout, of course, we know and understand is pointing to Yeshua. But if this is a sign of what is going on, he's going to raise the high priest like Yehoshua, a salvation from the eternal. He's going to raise him as a high gadol to serve on the house of the Father, right? And I took a stone, I get for look at the stone I have put in front of the Yehoshua. One stone of 7 eyes, perfect judgment. And I will engrave that it's to be written on it, says the Eternal Sabaoth, and I will remove the guilt of this land in 1 day. How many days took Yeshua to remove the guilt of the whole people of Israel? When that time comes, said the Eternal, you will all invite each other to join you under your vines and the fig trees. What it means, everybody will be on that communion with the Eternal and shalom, right? Because all the forgiveness has come to that Father in this day that he's pointing to Zechariah 3, a vision coming to Yehoshua, the high priest that comes the salvation of the eternal. That's what Yehoshua means, salvation from the eternal, or salvation from the Most High again. And this vision from what that sprout brings is remember again from the father of Yohanan, Zechariah, where in Luke 67:75, and his father of Yohanan, John the Baptist, or Job the Immerser, the purifier, Zechariah, was filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, holy breath, and prophesied, saying, Blessed is the Eternal, the Most High Elohim of Israel. From he had visited the redeemed his people, and had raised a shofar of salvation, a horn of salvation, for us in the house of his servant David. What that means? He has raised a shofar of salvation, one sprout of salvation, the servant from David, the beloved one. To the old Jewish people, to the old Israelite people, to the old Ephraimite people, to the old Israelites, because people sometimes measure that because it's just Jewish people mentioned just for the Jews. Hey, it's still by the culture before the first century, all the Israelite people was called Jews. And he spake by the form his holy prophets, which had been since the world begun, that that we should be saved from our enemies. Look at this. Just remember what he said in there, that we should be saved from our enemies, and from the hand of all that hate us, to perform the mercy promised from our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, an oath which we swear to our father Abraham, that he would grant unto us, that we, being delivered from the hand of enemies, might serve with him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. Simple as that. This high priest who was raised 2,000 years ago has cleansed not the sins of just Israel, but the entire world. So we can serve in holiness, in righteousness, without fear, all the days of our life. He doesn't say just the Shabbat. He doesn't say he's gonna make atonement only on the atonement day, Yom Kippur, as we're talking about this today. But I'm just mentioning all these things so we can understand what the covenants that we have spoken in the Old Testament are mentioned for understanding what is Shalom, what is a covenant that the Eternal wants to be an oath with Him, with with not breaking and not being against him, but to be at his side, which side we want to be in. Holy priests, holy people, goy kadosh, like it's mentioned in there in the Torah, or just anyone from any people who do anything and against the Father. Not the word of the Father, but what the people says, as religion mentions. It's important to get that. It's important to understand that we come to Yom Kippur, we not to deny ourselves, humble ourselves to the Father, recognizing that He is Elohim, that He has raised a shofar of salvation in the house of David from Israelites to clean the filthiness, and they can be delivered. And so all of us are part of that tree, to serve in holiness and righteousness before Him all the days of our life. All the days of our life, not just one day. Now in the Brit Hadashah, we have the same thing on the words of Peter, Cephas. But you are an elect race, a royal priesthood, a holy people, and a people of possession, that you should proclaim the praises unto Him who called you out of the darkness into His precious light. That's in Exodus 19, 5, 6. The people that He has choose from the nations to be a royal priesthood. Like, not because an elected race. How many races are in the world? It's just one. From all of those races in the world, He has choose people to be His priesthood, a holy people. Holy people is not an elected race. It could be from anyone. Holy people. Goy kadosh. Goy, anyone. Kadosh, not anyone. Means, get it? Because to be kadosh, it could be kadosh anyone who come and keep the commands of the Father. Torah could be on a covenant with Him of shalom, not being against Him. Choose always the eternal, humbling themselves. Aniv be'anav. I recognize Your kingdom. I want to do righteousness. I want to do fast. I do want to deny myself. I have to do my bread for one who's hunger. I will give my bread for his hunger. To do righteousness again. Right? Now, also in Hosea, it says, you who were talking about, for those who were, Hosea talking about to the people who were being punished or being prophesied to be punished because of what the transgressions of they have done against the Father. The Father is telling them that you who were not people, Lo Am, but now you are people of Elohim, who had not obtained mercy, but who have the mercies poured into upon you. Hosea 1, 6, 9. So in Peter, again, like I was mentioning, in Peter, letter of Cephas, Peter, first letter of Peter, chapter 2, 9 to 12, a Right Rooks version in that one. Beloved, I exhort to you, pilgrims and strangers, as pilgrims and strangers, again, like you see that elector race, it doesn't mean about a specific race. Like people saying there is not just black people, it's from any race. Goy kadosh. Any goy, specifically kadosh. Not any kadosh. Kadosh. Bring them strangers to abstain from fleshy lust, which were against the soul, and let your conduct be good before all men, so that may who speak evil words against you may see the word of the actions and may exalt Elohim in the day of the trial. I don't know if that's too hard to understand. I think I did this a little bit controversial, but now you go to 19:5-6 again. If you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, there shall be a peculiar treasure. That's another translation to me, above all people. For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of Kohanim, and a holy nation, a holy people, Gai Kadosh. These are the words which shall speak into the children of Israel. Not 100%. I mean, that's not different. Now, again in Hosea, again, just does more clear. And she conceived again and bore a daughter, and he said to him, call her name Lo Ruhamah, no mercy, for I will not again still have mercy in the house of Israel, but I will completely make them away, and will have mercy upon the house of Judah. I will save them by eternal will him, and I will not save them by now, by bow, by sword, or by battle, or horses, or by horsemen. It was not by battles. They wanted a king like they wanted a king like those in the old ancient time. They conquer all those lands. That was not a kind of king that the Eternal is prophesying here. He's gonna save these people, but not by that means. And if you go to Acts in 15:15 again, and disagree the words of prophets is written, after this I will return, and I will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down, and I will build again the ruins of thereof. I will set up that the residue of men seek them after the eternal. The residue of men, all men, in all translations, and all the Gentiles upon my name is called eternal, who dwell on these things know that Elohim are all his works from the beginning in the world. This to understand when the people are coming to keep Yom Kippur, they can come and keep Yom Kippur, because it's not specification in a tabernacle in there. When Yeshua was talked to the Samaritan woman that he was not in that temple, neither in this mountain, because Samaritans have their own service in that mountain where Jacob has raised an altar, and then they have the other people in the Temple Mount. When it was given to David, they didn't know where to go. And it was a division between both of them, because they said, no, it's here in this mountain, the temple. I said, no, it's here where the Jacob did, because you guys were too many transgressions. And they didn't have concordance. Then Yeshua said, well, you know what? Neither there, neither here. It's in spirit and truth. Not in temples. Why you guys are building temples? Where in the whole scripture say that you have to build temples to worship such God? It says in Ruach Be'emet, spirit and truth. By what the word is saying and what the Father is revelating to you. You want to keep Shabbat, do it in your house. You want it with your congregate, your family, in your other friend's family. Very well, we all keep Shabbat. It's not hard in that. It's not complicated. It's not out of the world. Why you have to congregate in a Christmas night, which is a pagan tradition, where it's not written down in the Bible, has no shadow at all inside what the biblical scripture is teaching, and you guys have to put that in there by force. By force, because it's not means to that. He didn't born in that age. Tammuz, an Egyptian god, was gotten in there. And you still want to be holy people? It's not happening like that. It's a division of the sword. The word of the Father is making endear right now. You keep the traditions of men, they keep the traditions from Egypt, your gods, your treasures, and etc., or you come and afflict yourself into doing righteousness. Like the rich man talked to Yeshua and said, you okay, I've been done all this. I say, okay, go sell everything you have and then come to follow me, because following Yeshua is also a commandment in Torah, according to Deuteronomy 18:18. So it's just not just all Torah, it's also listening to the voice of Mashiach, the one he has sent it, Shiloh. So the importance to following and to listening the voice of Messiah It's in this day of Yom Kippur, one of the most important things that we have to get it. And I have to get a little bit of the Tanakh to understand what is Shalom, what is the breed of Shalom, the covenant that we have through Messiah with the Father, that is, that with sacrifice that He did, the offering that He performed for us, is that we can acquire that way to get in the presence of the Father, right? Now we have the whole letter of Hebrews to understand what I'm saying here now, but when we come to Yom Kippur, this celebration, we understand that when Messiah entered in the heavens with his sacrifice to present himself in there, according to what we're going to read in Hebrews, we are waiting for that day to come out and he's bring redemption to the whole people. At the judgment day is coming. Yom Kippur is in full action happening since the moment of Messiah is presented in heavens. And we are waiting for that day when the trumpet sounds, the final trumpet sounds. And that's why we have Yom Teruah, would alert us, would awake us, would keep us in mind that Messiah is coming back, and is coming back to do redemption, is coming back to do a judgment day, and we have to be on a fasting until the day he come back and get out of that real temple that is in the heavens. Now, in Hebrews, the letter of the Hebrews in the chapter 9, verse 24 to 28, we read, for Messiah did not enter in the Holy of Holies made by hands, which is a symbol, which was a symbol, a figure of the true one, but into the heaven itself, into the true one. He didn't get into the Mishkan that was done into the hands here, but into the real one, in the heavens, to appear in the presence of the Yah in our behalf. Not that he should often himself, not that he have done often by himself, as the high priest does, that enter into the Holy of Holies year by year, because that was offered, that was ordained by the Eternal after Nadab and Abihu were dead, because they offered something weird that the Eternal didn't order, and they were fulminated in the moment they touched the they tried to approach the presence of the Father, because they were bringing something that he didn't order. They were fulminated. So he then ordered, you know what, you cannot order every time, they cannot enter in the Holy of the Holies every time, because they're gonna die. You guys have to purify. You have to go, you know what, one person once a year, one time in your time, you're gonna enter here. Mashiach entered once for all. He didn't enter many times every year, because that was not the purpose, to enter the heavens, coming down, and I'm gonna come back again, like kind of a rapture, something crazy like that. No, it's not Tim LaHaye here, no. But he entered the holy once, the present to be in the presence of the eternal in our behalf. Look, my blood, this is the blood who shed all the sins of the world, so we can be in the presence of the Father in shalom, to serve him in righteousness and in holiness the rest of our lives. How grateful and how favorable is that? That's when you understand that grace is not just a cheap ticket to keep sinning like you ever want, but to uphold Torah, as Rav Shaul said in his letter of Romans. Right? Further in the book of the Hebrews, the same letter said, for the moment, or I think I didn't read this off for that. Not that he should often himself as a high priest enter the Holy of Holies year by year with the blood of others. Otherwise he would have been obligated to have suffered many times for himself to abolish sin, and is reserved for men to once die after this judgment. So Messiah had been once offered to bear the sins of many, Messiah shall appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are really waiting for him. Look at that, who are greatly, agilely, or waiting for him on holiness, humbling themselves, denying themselves, self-afflicting themselves, having the true fast, the true righteousness, and a pact of shalom, setting them apart from what this world have done into idolatry, sexual perversion, immorality, etc., etc. A day to coverage all the redeemed, and a judgment for the disbelievers. That's Yom HaKippurim. In the shadow of Mashiach, when he comes back, Messiah shall appear a second time, again, not a third, not a fourth time, second coming, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are waiting for him. Further in the letter of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 11 to 17, easy to read version, says, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant. And this is mentioned about the suffering that we have in there. In this case, self-afflicting as a Yom Kippur. But later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness for those who have been trained by it. Therefore lift your drooping hands and straighten your weak knees and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. He's going to strengthen us if we keep walking in these straight paths. Strive for peace, again, strive for shalom, work for shalom with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the eternal. See to it that no one fails to obtain the favor of Elohim. See that no one's failing into that task of working on shalom, on that covenant of shalom, and being against the Father because we cannot set apart ourselves, denying ourselves, fasting in this word for the Messiah to come back, and not obtaining the favor of the Almighty. That no root of bitterness springs of causes trouble, and this birthright for a single meal, trouble, and by it many become defiled. A single sprout of bitterness, we can become defiled. That no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau. In point of this, he's mentioned that Esau was sexually immoral or unholy, unrighteousness, who sold his birthright for a single meal. He didn't want the blessing. He just wanted to fill his stomach. He just wanted to fill his desires. He wanted just to fill the moment of his life and building of this world. He didn't want to working on the blessing and working for what is inheritance in the heavens, which is eternity and the right side. To be an inheritance in the heavens, which is Yeshua in the heavens, eternity, what he has promised. Again, that no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthday for a single meal just to fill your stomach. For you know that afterward, when he desired to inherit the blessing, he was rejected. For he found no chance to repent, for he sought on with tears. And I can't just forget to mention in this, when Yeshua called to these people, many will say on that day, "Oh Lord, oh Lord," and we can imagine. And now I meant to you guys, you know what? Depart from me, you evildoers, you anomos. Anomos is what it says in Greek in there. What's anomos? No law. No law. Again. Yom Kippur, a day of the coverage. A day of the coverage for the redeemed, to come close to the Father, if you wish so, because that's Kippur, Kapparet, to come close to the Father, for those redeemed, and a judgment for disbelievers. If you get that, You cannot come to the Yeshua and believe in Him and His covenant, on His korban offering, His blood, His instruction, His word, the word of the Father, the Torah. You're a disbeliever and you're up to judgment. Because Yom Kippur is a day for putting for even those ones who ignore the word. I can't remember where the part of the scripture where it mentions us that so no one by ignorance can be have that times it has passed the times of ignorance, so everyone can come and be saved. Sorry for just paraphrasing that, but that's what I want to mention. Passing the times of ignorance. We have passed the times of ignorance. We are not like people of Israel anymore. We have the light of Yeshua. His splendor already lighting in our days every day. It can be passed as disbelievers once that we have discovered what all this offering with sacrifices meant to the Father. And it was the blood of Mashiach to a covenant of shalom, to a covenant of peace. There's a kind of different, a redemption, to be in front of the Father with all that the light, which is with a holy foundation, Yeshua, to be on covenant with Him and shalom, and not covering our bodies with negligence or immoralities, denying the Torah, denying Mashiach, or anyone who denies Mashiach is the anti-Mashiach. Why you be on covenant with those people? They're nothing. So this is Yom HaKippurim, a day where you afflict yourselves, right? Anif be'anav, like I mentioned in the beginning. And for those who want to be with Him, holy people, to do the fruit of righteousness, not just to walk away and just said, I don't want to be part of this. Who would turn their people who turn their back in their actions of not looking for holiness and just doing their own word, to doing whatever they want because that's what pleased them, whatever their flesh are looking for as all just filling their stomachs and not looking for the blessing of the Father in Yeshua and be covered by His blood so we can be in shalom with Him. It's not hard to understand. It's not get it. I mean, if you prefer to keep the redemption day and the advent of the Messiah in the 25th of December, then keeping something scriptural was written down in Leviticus 23, who brings the shadow of the Messiah perfectly, with even the shadow of His blood being shed, instead of a pagan tradition that is brought from the nations. I mean, you're mean up to judgment, because you're not just ignoring, just rejecting it. And you haven't ignored that, because some people in theology, they just know this, but because they can't change themselves and just want to cover their own guilt by keeping the tradition of men, they ignore it, they reject the word of the Father and keep in doing this. And they keep driving people into the hole with them. Blinds, guides of blinds. Yom Kippur is a day where the holiness is in the Most High before entering Sukkot. Denying ourselves is the denying and having the fasting of Messiah until He comes back, until He is shining again, and we are gonna be fasting in that day until He appears again. It's one day He has entered into the Holy of Holies, the true tabernacle in the heavens. It's one day we're going to be fasting on Him and doing righteousness and self-afflicting ourselves and humble to our Father, Anif Be'anav, so we can be a holy people. So we can be that holy people, for Him and receive that coverture. The real Yom HaKippur is going to happen in the day of the redemption or the day of judgment for disbelievers.